हेलो दोस्तों, कैसे हो? आपका स्वागत है त्रिपाण स्टडी सेंटर में। आज जो हम करने जा रहे हैं सोशल साइंस यानी सामाजिक विज्ञान, जो कि काफ़ी महत्वपूर्ण टॉपिक है। इस पे हम हर एक विषय पे जो है विस्तार पूर्वक चर्चा करेंगे और हर एक पहलू पे प्रकाश डालने की कोशिश करेंगे। चलिए देखते हैं हमारा आज टॉपिक क्या है। इफेक्ट ऑफ ब्रिटिश रूल ऑन इंडिया। देयर इज इकोनॉमिक, सोशल एंड कल्चर and period time here 1757 to 1857. There is the most important period time here, impact of British rule on India. But first topic arrive here, a reason for a coming to the India. Reason for a coming to India. Let us study on this topic. The European and British trader initially come to the India for a trading purpose. That is the most important point here. European and British traders only purpose here for coming to the India, their trading purpose. But the industrial revolution in Britain led to increase in a demand for the raw material for the factories, and there at the same time they also require a market to sell their finishing goods. You know that there is the most important for the same time they are also required to the market to sell their finished good, but Indian market is the most important in this period time. India is provide such a platform to British to fulfill all their needs. There is raw materials and the marketing of sale of finishing of goods. There is India is a fulfill all their need. The 18th century was a period of internal power struggle in the India. There is a 18th century. In this period of time, the internal power struggle in India, and with the decline of power of Mughal Empire. The decline of in this period of time Mughal Empire. The British officer where is provided with the perfect opportunity to establish their hold over India territory. And they did this is a third a numerous war and force of threats and annexation on the alliance with the various regional powers all over the country. There is a regional power all over the country on this period time. The new administrative and economic policy helped them to the consolidate their control over the country. Their land revenue policy helped them keep the poor farmer in check and get some as a revenue in the return. Therefore, there is a commercialization of agriculture with the growing of various cash crop and the raw materials for the industry in a Britain. With the strong political control, the British were able to non-polize their trade with India, and they defeated their foreign tribes in a trade so that there could be no competition. These monopolized their sale of all kind of raw materials and bought this at a low price. There is the most important benefit on India given to the British, the raw material, and bought this at a low price. And whereas India, weavers had to buy them at a exorbitant price. Heavier duties were imposed on Indian goods entered to British so as to be protect their own industry, and various investments were made to improve the transport and communication system in the country of facilitated the easily transfer of raw material from the farm to port and of finished good from their port to the markets. And also English education was introduced to be create a class of educated Indian who would be assist the British in ruling the country and strengthen their political authority. All these measures helped to the British to establish and consolidate and continue their rule over India. And in this period time here, the currency used the East India Company show you on your screen. There is a most important currency on this period time. And also use the other currency used by the East India Company on this period time. There is the paper money. There is the most important for your screen. There is a imagine the East India Company is also written on this. This is a currency, and also here as the any of ones is used. This is important. The next topic is important here, methods of colonialism in India. The method of colonialism in India, that is the most important topic here. Look at the map of Europe. You will find many big and small states on it. When the industrial revolution started in Europe, those small states did not have a sufficient raw material for their industry. A market for their is the finishing goods. These countries is now started looking for a market in Asia and Africa. That is important here. There is a market, there is a finishing good on industries, raw materials. Now they started looking for the market in Asia and Africa. England succeeded in controlling trade with the India and established the East India Company in a 16th century. This company was supported by the British government. The East India Company there is supported by the British government, and with the help of England was able to extend her territorial frontier to the Indian subcontinent. The first factory was established at Surat in 1613. There is important. The first factory was established at Surat in 1613. There is a UPSC exam is important here. In 1615, Sir Thomas Roe got a permission from to the Mughal Empire Jahangir to open more factory at Agra. That is important also. The 1615, the Sir Thomas Roe got a promise for there is a permission for there is a Mughal Empire Jahangir to open more factory at Agra, Allahabad and Bauch. There is a most important three state on there is a factory of Agra in a permission for a Jahangir. There are most important settlement on the southern coastal and Madras where they built a fortified factory called the Fort H. George. There is a factory in Madras here is called the factory is called for a Fort St. George, and this was the first proprietary holding acquired by the Company of Indian soil, and gradually the company expanded its trading network. By that time, the company was well established in India. It had also succeeded in their eliminating their other well European powers from India. They also started to interfering in political affairs of India as rulers. Here show the most important present day of Europe. There is a map of present day of Europe. There is a most important, and here Africa and Asia and Europe. There is a important map on your screen. Look at the map of 19th century of India. There is a most important map is the next year. Look, there is a map of 19th century India. What do you see? You will be looking at many big and small independent state. And this state had there is urban rulers, economical language and culture. These states were constantly at war with each other. There is important. These states were constantly at war with each other. It was not surprising that their affair and the easy prey with their European power, especially their British. It was the Battle of Plebiscite 1757 and Buxar 1764, which provided their ground for the British success in India. Throughout this is a battle, a long era of British political control over India began. The Battle of Plebiscite was won by the England in Bengal. Plebiscite was won by the England in Bengal. The British made Mir Jafar the new Nawab of Bengal. British made Mir Jafar the new Nawab of Bengal in return for which they are received and emerged is a sum of money as well as the territory of 24 paragons from the Nawab. This is important. Some of the money as well as territory of 24 paragon from a Nawab. But Mir Jafar was not able to make a further payment to them. As a result, he was placed by the Mir Qasim, who is proved a strong ruler. The Mir Qasim was not ready to meet their demand for more money or control. As a result, Mir Qasim was removed and Mir Jafar was made the Nawab again. Mir Qasim was the joint hand with the Nawab of Awadh and Siraj Udawla and the Mughal Empire Shah Alam. Shah Alam too is plotting against the British. The battle took place at a place called the Buxar on 22 October 1764. Their defeat proved to be decisive. Though the British successfully gained control over the Bengal, the imposition of British ruler throughout the India was not an easy task. A number of regional powers opposed them and tried to extend the effort of the territorial expansion of British. Let us read about their various war visits to British against to Indian state. But first of all, see the 19th century map on your screen. On your screen, there is a Indian map that reference territory under the Indian ruler. There is a show here a territory under the Indian ruler. There is all part of India, but territory under to British. The British is a maximum or highlighted the Kolkata, Bihar, and the Uttar Pradesh, some state, and the also here of the other Mughals is just. But here a territory user to the European power only for the Goa. There is a only for the Goa on a European power, but British power is the stability here, maximum best of Bengal, Bihar, and some part of Uttar Pradesh. And also the other side, there is an important map on your screen, and you see the Madras and Pondicherry of here, the important or European country is this here stipulate. That is the most important. The next point here, Anglo-mysore Wars. There is an important point here, Anglo-mysore Wars. The Mysore emerged as a powerful state under the able leadership of Hyder Ali, and he is the son of Tipu Sultan in the second half of the 18th century. For what took place between Mysore and British, finally their fourth Anglo-mysore Wars in 1799 and ended in the heroic defeat and death of Tipu Sultan. With his glorious chapter of struggle between Mysore and England come to an end. Larger part is like Kanara, Kambot, and the Seripatums were succeeded by the British. On your screen, there is the most important king here, Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan is the most important and struggle for the British. There is an important king on this period time. The next year, Anglo-maratha War. The Anglo-maratha War, there is an important. The Maratha were another formidable power in the western and central India during the second half of the 18th century. But the struggle for a power among themselves give a British an opportunity to be intervenes. There is the internal matters. The many wars took place between the British and Marathas mainly on account of the subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance is which you will be read in a next. The third Anglo-Maratha War is 1817 to 19. There is 1870 to 19. There is a third Anglo-Maratha War was the last war between them. The English defected to the Peshawar and they wanted him to be annexed all the territory. The Peshawar was a pensionoid of and sent to the Bithur near Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh. The next point here, Anglo-Sikh War. Anglo-Sikh War, there is a most important here. In northern West India, the Sikh under the able to the leader Maharana Ranjit Singh. The Maharana Ranjit Singh is 1792 to 1839. There is a most important period time here. The leader Maharaja Ranjit Singh became an effective political and military force. The British power is in India view there is a rise of Sikh as a potential threat. The British thus wanted to do wearing the Sikh under control. After the death of Ranjit Singh in 1839, the lawlessness is prevalent in Punjab. The British took advantage of this and their first Anglo-sikh War broke out in the 1845, which ended with the defeat of the Sikh. In the Second Anglo-Sikh War in 1849, the British finally defeated them in the Battle of Gujarat, a town on the river Chenab. This is 1849. The Sikh chief is surrounded and the Punjab was annexed by Lord of Dalhousies and Maharaja Dalip Singh. The Maharaja Dalip Singh, the son of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, was pensioned off and sent to England. Here on the screen here, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, there is a very powerful person on this period time here. The stability of Punjab on this person. The next point here, other consequent system of alliance and annexations. There is an important point right here. The third battle of Panipat against the Marathas in 1761 had already provided the stage for the success of British in India. Soon many more native states come under the British control. And this was done by a system of alliance called doctrines of the lapse and subjugace alliance. Doctrine of the lapse has led to be a number of independent kingdoms, began annexed to be British Empire. And these were states that were enjoying British protection, but their rulers had died without any living and natural heir to be thrown. And their adopted son could now not longer inherit to be property or the pension, which was granted to them by the British. In this way, Dalhousie is annexed to the Maratha state of Sura, Satara, and 1849 there is a here. Satara is a 1849 and Sambolpur is a 1850. Udaipur is a 1852 and Nagpur here 1853. Jhansi here 1854 and Awadh is a 1856. In a subsidiary alliance in the Indian state that were under a British protection had to be suspend their army and intended to the maintain of British troops. And they also is surrounded, there is control on their foreign affair and let go on their right to make alliance with other foreign states for any purpose, and economics and political. In the return, there was given to protection by British from their rebel. The policy of annexation affected not only their Indian ruler but also those who were depending upon them, such as soldier, craft, and people, and even nobles. Even a traditional scholarly style, a classless, is a lost their patragon, and from there is ruler as a chieftain, and noble and the jamidar, and where thus the improvised. And thus by the mid 19th century, so single Indian power was there to challenges are assessed to British. Assam, Arkan, and northern eastern regions and part of the Nepal and Burma were already annexed to the 1818 to the 1826. The British also occupied the Sindh in 1843. There is the most important period time here. Here show the your screen the Rani Lakshmi Bai on this period time. There is a most important battle, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Heads of the Sun here. The next topic is important here, economical impact. What is here economical impact? The industrial revolution has helped the England and merchant is accumulate a lot of capital from a country of Asia, Africa, and America. There is an important here. Industrial revolution has helped to England. The merchant is accumulate a lot of capital from a country of Asia, Africa, and America. They now want to invest this wealth in a setting up industries and trade with India. The mass production of goods through their machines and that we witness today was a pioneers there through the Industrial Revolution and which occurred first in England during the later 18th and earlier 19th century. There is an important period of time here. There is a current first England during to the later 18th and earlier 19th century. And this led to be a massive increasing in the output of finished product. The East India Company helped in the financing and expanding their industry base. During this time, there was a class of manufacturers in England who benefited more from manufacturing than to trading. They are interested in the having more raw materials from India as well as sending their finishing good back. Between 1793 and 1813, this is the British manufacturers launched a compass against the company, and its trade is a monopoly and the prevalence it enjoyed. And ultimately, they succeed in the abolishing the East India Company as a monopoly of Indian trade. With this, Indian become an economical colony of industry of England. This is important. With this, India become an economical colony of industry of England. Let us learn more about the economical impact on a various Indian industry and trade. The first point here, textile industry and trade. Earlier, India is a handloom had a big market in Europe. Earlier, India as a handlooms had a big market in Europe. India textiles such as a cotton, satin, silk, and woolens good already has a market in Asia and Africa. With the coming of industrialization in England, the textile industry there made important is a headway. There was no now a reverse of the direction of textile trade between Britain and India. There was now as a reverse of the direction of the textile trade between Britain and India. And there was a massive import of machines and made clothes from England factory to England market. This import of large amount of product manufactured by the mechanical looms in England led to increase a threat for their handicraft industry as the British goods were sold at the much cheaper price. The British succeed in the selling their good at a cheap price as a foreign goods and were given to the free entry in India without paying any duty. There is the most important name here. The British succeed in the selling their goods at a cheap price as a foreign goods were given free entry for India without paying any duty. There is free is very dangerous. On the other hand, India is a handicraft were taxed heavily when they were sent out of country. And besides, under the pressure of the industrialist, British and government often impose a protective stress on Indian textile. There within the few years, India from began an exporter of clothes, become an exporter of raw cotton and importer of British clothes. This service made a hug impact on the Indian handlooms and weaving industry and leading to it is a virtual collapse and there it is also create unemployment for a large community of weavers and many they migrated to the rulers area to work on their lands and agricultural labors. This is a turning point. There is a turn point increasing of pressure on the rural economics and livelihood. And this process is an uneven competition faced by the Indian landloom industry. Was the latter is doubled by the Indian nationalist leader as a deindustrialization. The main aim of British was the transfer of India into the consumer of British good. There is a main aim for the Britisher. There are transfer for India into the consumer of British good. As a result, Textile, metalwork, and glass and paper industry were soon out of work. By 1813, the Indian is a handicraft lost both their domestic as well as a foreign market. India goods could not be complete with the British factory made a product where machines were used. This market were now captured and monopolized by the Britain by means of war and colonization, and from exporter India became a importer of these goods. They extract of money from the Indian rulers, merchants, and jamidar, and even to the common people. Added to this is a drains where to profit made through the trade, and also there are salaries of the officially. It was evident that their economical policy were meant to serve the interest of the East India Company and later the British Empire. The next year, land revenue policy and land settlement. Land revenue policy and land settlements. Since the same time, the main course of livelihood for the people were agriculture. Hence, land tax had formed a principal source of revenue from all their compeers all over the world. In the 18th century, the main occupation of the Indian people were the agriculture, and during the British rule, revenue from a land keep on increasing, and there are reasons for there were many. Earlier, the British had come to trade with India. Gradually, they wanted to conquer their vast territory of India for which they needed a lot of money. They also needed money for a trade project of the company as well as for the cost of running the administration. The British carry out of number of land revenue experiment which the caused the hardship of cultivator. The hardship cultivator and they extract taxes from their farmer to the finance their policy and war effort. Direct and indirect. There is a direct and indirect mean where a carry out of wearing about this is a collection of revenue for the British. This affected the reliefs of the people who could not be meet their daily needs because they had to provide the land owner and the collector their share in the produce. The local administration failed to be provide a relief and natural justice to the ruler poor. The Lord is a Cornwallis introduced a permanent settlement in Bengal and Bihar in 1793. Lord Cornwallis is introduced the permanent settlement in Bengal and Bihar in 1793. It's made the landlord or jamidar and deposit a fixed amount of money in the state treasury. In return, they were recognized as a hereditary owner of land, and this made the jamidar the owner of the land. The amount of revenue to be paid to the company was fixed for a period of time, and which made the British financially secure. Now there is advance as to be how much revenue was coming in from the state. The Jamidar also know how too much revenue was to be paid. So to we get a surplus revenue for himself, they asked the peasant to be increasing production. But if the Jamidar failed to pay the fixed revenue on the time, his land and was sold off the another Jamidar. The British stood a benefit from this settlement as a new class of Jamidar that emerged, become their political allies. They supporting the British in the time and need an act of the buffer between them and peasant. The class in fact supporting the British against the independent settlement. In 1822, the British introduced the Malhawari settlement. Mahalawari settlement in the northern west province and Punjab and Ganga Valley and part of central India. Here the basis of assessment was the product of Mahal state. Mahal or state, which may be a village or group of villages. Here all the proprietors of Mahal were jointed responsible for paying their sum of revenue assigned by the government. Unfortunately, there is about no benefit to be present as the British demand were very high. The Ratwari settlement was introduced in the beginning of the 19th century in many parts of Mumbai and Madras presidency. There were Tawari settlement in the 19th century and they are part of Mumbai and Madras presidency. Here the land revenue was imposed directly on the roots. The individual cultivator who actually worked on the land, the person was recognized as the owner of the land as long he was able to pay the revenue, but exploitations continue with the high revenue demands. The next topic is the most important here, commercialization of agriculture. There is a commercialization of agriculture here. Another major economical impact of the British policy in India was a reduce of large number of commercial crops such as tea, coffee, indigo, opiums, cottons, jutes, sugarcane and oilseed. There is a most important impact of British policies in India or reduce a large number of commercial crops such as tea, coffee, indigo, opiums, cotton, jute, sugarcane and oilseed. Different kind of commercial crop were introduced with a different intention. India's opiums was used to the balance of trade of Chinese tea with a bitten in the letter of the favor. The market for opiums was strictly is controlled by British trader, which did not leave a much scope for Indian producer to the reap profit. India has were to forced to produce indigo and sell its own condition as dedicated by the British. Indigo was sent to England and used as a nice agent for the cloth producing in a British town. Indigo was growing under a different system where all the farmer were compelled to be growth its own, the 12th of third part of their land. Unfortunately, cultivation of indigo left the land fertile of some years, and this made a farmers a recant of growth in it. In the tea plantation, there is ownership change to the land quite often. The worker on this plantation work under a lot of hardship. Commercialization of the agriculture further enhanced their speed of transfer of ownership of land and thereby increased the number of landless labor. It is also brought in a large number of merchant trade and middlemen who further exploited the situation. The peasant now depend on them to sell their produce during the harvest time. Because the peasant now is shifting to a commercially crop, food grain and production went down. So less food stock are led to be fine. It was therefore not to be surprising that a peasant is revolted. You would read about it as a details in the coming chapter. There was on the enormous drain of wealth from our country to be turned due to the various economic policies. Additional financial burden was placed on the India due to the expenditure on the salary, pension and training of military and civilian staff employed by the British rule India. If this wealth was invested in India, it could be have to help its economies improve to the economic in the country. Let us learn how to economical policy implemented by the British change the social, culture and Indian society. The next year, rise of new money lending class. The rise of new money lending class here. The time bound to be exclusive is a demand of revenue by the British government and forced the peasant to be take a loan from to moneylender. This moneylender often exploited the peasant by the charging high interest rate. The farmer by charging high interest rate. They often used unfair mean like a false counting forwarded to the signature and thumb impression. There is a fraud. The new legal system and the policy introduced by the British only helped the money lender who were either local merchant and landlord. In most cases, a farmer failed to pay or back the loan with a fully interest. And this their land is gradually passed into the land of money lending class. The next year, rise of new middle class. A major impact of British rule in India was the beginning of new middle class. There is a rising of new middle class on impact of British ruler. With the rise of British commercial interests, new opportunity opened to a small section of the Indian people. They often act as the agent and intermediaries of the British traders and thus made a hug fortune. The new landed aristocracy, which is a coming to begin after the introduction of permanent settlement, also form a part of this new class. A major section of all landownings aristocracy lost ownership of their land and in many cases were replaced by a new class of land owners. These people got a common English education and become the new elite. With the spread of their British power, the new job opportunities were also created. Indian society witnessed the introduction of new law courts and government officially and commercially agency. The English education people naturally got to the necessary patagons from their colonial ruler. Thus, a new profession and service holding a middle class was also created by the British apart from those with the landed interested. The next year, transport and communication. The mean of transport in India at that time were a bulk cart, camel, and bag as a pack animals. England, on the other hand, needed a railway that connected the raw materials and producing area with exporting ports and the facilitated their movement of British goods to different part of country, as well as very raw material to be ports. The vast network of railways that you witness today was pioneers and during the latter half of the 19th century. This opened avenue of the British banker and investor to invest surplus wealth and materials in the contraction of railways. Railways benefited there is a British capitalist in a two important way. First, it is a made a trading of commodity much easier to the profitable by connected the internal market in the ports. And secondly, the railway engine, a coach, and the capital input for the buildings of rail line come for the Britain. The British capitalists who is invest in the railway were also granted a minimum profit of 5% by government. That is important. The British capitalists who is invested in a railways were also granted a minimum profit of 5% by the government. And these companies were also given a free land with the less of 99 years. Third, the railways were set up for the advantage of British trade, and they also play an important role in the national awakening of country. Third, the British had never anticipated the extensive transport network and improved the education toward their people and India closer. During the British rule, India took an idea of liberty, equality, human rights, and science and technology from the West. And this accelerated the process of modernizations, and now will be read about the impact of modern idea on Indian society. The next topic is here, British impact on society and culture. The British impact on society and culture. Indian society underwent many changes after the British come to the India. Indian society underwent many changes after the British come to India. In the 19th century, contained a social practice like a female infanticide and child marriage and sati prolongations, and a religious caste system become more prevalent. That is important. The 19th century British come in India, there are a social practice like a female infanticide, child marriage, and sati polygamy and religious caste system become more prevalent, and this practice were against to human dignity and the value. The women were discriminated against at all stages of life and were the disadvantaged action of the society. They did not have access to any development opportunity to improve their status. Education was limited to a handful of men belonging to the upper castes. Brahmins had success to be Vedas, which were written in the Sanskrit. An expensive rituals, sacrifice and practice after the birth or death were outlining by the prescribed classes. When the British come to the India, they brought a new idea such as liberty, equality, freedom and human rights. From the resonances, the Reformation is a moment, is a various revolution that take place in Europe. There are resonances and reformation of movement. There are various revolutions that take place in Europe. And this idea appeal to be some action of our society and lead to be several reform movements in a different part of the country. At the forefront of this movement were is visionary Indians such as Raja Ram Mohan Rai, such as Ahmad Khan, Aruna Asaf Ali, and Pandita Ramabai. There is a most important social movement control on this period time here. This movement looking for the social unity and strive to about to the liberty, equality, and fraternity. That is important. The money legal measure to the were introduced to improve the status of women. There is a most important effort here. The Raja Ram Mohan Rai. The Raja Ram Mohan Rai, for example, the practice of sati was banned in 1829 by the Lord Bantrax. There went to Governor of General on this period time. And with this remarriage was permitted by the law passed in 1856. A law passed in 1872 is sanctioned intercaste and intercommunal marriage. And so the act was passed in 1929 preventing the child marriage. The act provided that it was illegal to marry a girl below to the 14 and boy below to 18 years. All the moments while there is their caste system, especially their practice of untouchability. There is a most important moment on this period time, and there is a most important social evil on there is there. The impact of effort made by this is numerous individual, reform societies and religious organization was felt all over the was most evident in the national movement. Women started getting to better education opportunity and took up the professions and public employment outside their home. The role of women like Captain Lakshmi Sehgal of Indian National Army is the INA and Sarojini Naidu, Annie Besant, Aruna Asif Ali and many other were extremely important in freedom struggle. Here show the most important picture on your screen. The Captain Lakshmi Sehgal in the middle front row and other INA cadres is the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose is the left front of the row. There is the most important here, Captain Lakshmi Saigal, human there is achievements all of the goal on this period time. The next year, social and culture policy. Social and cultural policy. The British had come to be India with the idea of making immense profit, and this meant providing of raw materials at a very cheap rate and the selling finished good at a much higher price. The British wanted to the Indians to be educated and modern enough to be consumed they are good, but not to be their extent that is proved to the detrimental of British interests. There is important social and cultural policy. Some of the Britishers is believed that a Western idea were a modern and superior, while the Indian ideal were all the inferior. And this was, of course, not a true. Indian had a rich traditional learning that was still prevalent. By this time, England was a group of radicals who had humanistics and analogy to about the Indians. They wanted India to be a part of the modern progressive world of science. But the British government was continuous in the undertaking rapid modernizations of India. There are modernizations of India and they fed to the reaction among the people if too much interference took place with their religious belief and social customs. The English want to the perpetuation of their rule in India and not a reaction among the people. Hence, so there is talking about the introducing reform in a relative very few measures were taken and this were also half-hearted. The next year education policy. The British took a keen interest in the reducing their English language in India and they had a many reasons for going so. There is the British took keen interest in the introductions of the English language in India. That is important. Introducing their English language in India and they had a many reasons for the going so. Educating Indians as a English language was a part of their strategy and the Indians would be ready to be work as a clerk on the low wages before the some work in the British would be demand a much higher wages. This is would be reduce the expenditure on administration. It was also expected to be create a class of Indians who were loyal to the British and were not able to be related to the India other Indians. And this class as an Indian would be tough to appreciate the culture and opinions of British. In addition, there would be also help to be increase the market for British goods, and they want to be use education as a mean to be strengthen their political authorities in a country. And they assume that a few education in India would be separate English and culture to be masses. And they would be able to be ruled through his class of educated Indians. The British give a job to only those Indians who know the English, thereby to compelling many Indians to go in the English education. And education soon become a monopoly of the rich and city dwellers. That's important. The British Parliament issued a Charter Act of 1813 by the which a sum of rupees 1 lakh was sanctioned from promoting Western sciences in India. But a controversy soon arose and some wanted the money to be spent on advocating the Western idea only. There were others who is a place more emphasis on traditional Indian learning and some recommended use of vernacular regional languages as the medium of instruction and other were English as the medium instruction other were English. In this is a confusion. People have failed to be notice the difference between English as a medium and English as a subject for study. The British of the course and decided in the favor of teaching Western idea and literature through the medium of English language alone. Another step in the direction was Wood's Dutch of 1854. It asked the government of India to assume responsibility for the education of the masses. As part of directive given by the Woods, Dutch and Department of Education were instituted in all our provinces and is affiliated to the university were opened. In Kolkata, Madras, Mumbai in 1857. The many colleges opened by in this period of time. There is a Kolkata, Madras, Mumbai is 1857. As a few English school and colleges were opened instead of many elementary school. They ignored their education of the masses, but in the relative it was not sufficient to be catered to the need of the Indian people. Through the British followed a half-hearted education policy in India, English language and Western idea also had some positive impact on the society, and many reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra, Vidyasagar, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, and Swami Vivekanand absorbed the Western idea of liberalism and democracy and used it to reform some of the non-humanitarian social and religious practice of the time. Thought the education did not reach the masses, but some idea of anti-imperialism, nationalism, and social and economic equality took root through the politically parties and discussions and lived on the public platform and this the press. The spirit of English language and Western education helped Indians to be adopt modern and national, democratic, liberal and patriotic outlook. A new field of the knowledge in a science, humanities and literature open to them. English became the legal franca of the educated people in India. It united to them and gradually made them to politically is a conclusion of their right. It also gave opportunity to the Indians to be study in England and learn about their working of democratic institution there. The readings of Jones, Locke, Ruskin's, Mill, Russell's and many others installed in them to the idea of liberty, equality, and fanatics and human rights and self-government. The French and the American Revolution and the unification of the Italy and Germany further strengthened there is the appreciation of this idea. And converse Garibaldi and Mazarin become there is a favorite horses and they began to spread for this idea of for India. Western thinkers like Max Muller's and Annie Besant is encourage the vernacular language and literacy work to be installed instill a sense of pride in Indian heritage and culture. Is embellished Indian to be revised Indian as a culture past and also the important role of praise in arousing to the political awakening and exchange in the idea in a noteworthy. The newspaper and journals give opportunities to be share idea and problems. Similarly, novels, drama, short story, poetry, song, dance, and theater, art, and cinema were used to be separate, view, and express the resistance to be chronicle rule. They spoke the language of people and showcasing there is everyday lives, joy, and sorrow. Along with the newspaper and journally, there is a promoted their feeling of self-confidence and self-respect, awareness, and patriotism, thereby developing a feeling of national conscience. That's important here. The British is a devised the several strategies to be make their rule effective. They allied British administrator in like India like Warren Hastings, William John, Jonathan and Duncan and the other glorified Indian as ancient past. And this scholar and administrator were called to the Orientalist. There is a Orientalist that is called. And they thought that is a better understanding of Indian language, literacy and culture would be make it easier for them to rule of India. And important institutions that is come to be identified with there is a fort where Calcutta, Madras and founded by the one Hastings in 1781 and the Elastic Society of Bengal founded by William John and 1784 the Sanskrit College of Banaras founded by the Jonath Deccan in 1794 and fourth William College founded by the Wesleyans is the 18th century and this institution, especially the Asiatic Society and Fort William College, become a epicenter of the study of the Indian culture. Their Fort William College become the epicenter of study of Indian culture and language and literature. That's important. For the first time, great ascent Sanskriti, written like a Kalidas, become a noun to be a word through their translation of their monumental work into English. The next year, impact of reform movement. Impact of reform movement. How did the social religious reform movement lead to be national movement? Did the social religious reform movement lead to the national movement? The persistent is effort for the reformers had an immense impact on the society. The religious reform movement instilled in the mind of Indian greater self-respect and self-confidence and pride in their country. And this reform movement helped many Indians to become to be termed with the modern world. The reformer felt that is a modern idea and culture could be a best embedded by the integrating them into Indian culture stream. And they helped other countrymen to be appreciate that all the modern ideas were not against Indian culture and value. The introduction of modern education guided the Indian toward the scientific and rational approach to life. People become more confused of their identity as an Indian, which is ultimately responsible for their united struggle against the British in the freedom movement of India. There is the most important impact of reform movement in the India. There is an important scientific and rational approach to be life on this period time and a struggle against British in the freedom movement of India, impact of reform movement. The next year, British administration and judiciary system. The Indians found it difficult to be adjust to be new system of administration introduced by the British. The Indians were denied political right and British officers treated them with the contempt. Indians were excluded from all higher position in the civil administration and military. That is important. The British also introduced a new system of law and justice in India. A hierarchy of civil and criminal code was established on this period of time, and the law is codified and attempts were also made to separate the judiciary from the executive. Efforts were made to be established the rule of law in India, but this only helped the British to enjoy arbitrary power and interfere with the right and liberties of the Indians. The law court were not easily accessible to the common people, and justice became a costly affair. The new judicial system also discriminated between Europeans and Indians. The next point here, there is a protest movement. There is a protest movement is the next topic here. That was the impact of the British rule of the political, economics and social sphere, resulting in the sharp reaction of the Indian people against the foreigner. That is important. The divisive impact of the British rule on the political, economics, and social sphere resulting in the sharp reaction of the Indian people against the foreigner. This led to a series of anti-British movements throughout the country. The peasant means farmer and tribes rebelled against exploitative rulers. This has been delayed in the greater detail in the next few lessons. During the British rule, the number of famines recorded in India was the unprecedented. And during the first half of the 19th century, the seven big famines were recorded, were led to be the death of 15 lakh people. Similarly, in the latter half of the 19th century, there were 24 famines is causing over to the 200 lakh deaths. The most devastating was there is a Bengal famine of 1943 and which killed 3 to 4 million Indians. The peasant abandoned with there is a taxation, evacuation from a land and survival from the Bengal famine joined to the rebel group of Sannyasi and Fakir. This is important. The farmer burdened with the taxation, evacuation from land and survival from the Bengal famine joined to the rebel group of Sannyasi and Fakir. In 1783, the rebels stopped paying revenues to the company as agent. However, rebels were finally forced to surrender. And similarly, polygrams of Tamil, Nadu and Malabar and coastal Andhra and the Mapalas of the Malabar revolted against their colonial rules. Colonial rule. And the North India is a judge of the western Uttar Pradesh and Haryana revolted in 1824. In Maharashtra and Gujarat, there is a college is revolted. Tribes in a different part of country also is rebelled, as a colonial government extending their authority to traverse lands. The tribes were subjected to the various extermination. Tribal leaders such as Wills and Conquests and cause of Sikh revolted against British rule. However, British suppressed them ruthless. Oppressed to the Santals on the border of the Bengal, Bihar, Orissa also revolted against the British as they were began evacuated from their lands. And they even set up their own government, but British suppressed their revolt. Thought this Israel did not be succeed. They exposed to the upper popular character of colonial rule. Even today, we witness many disparities in our society. At least one third of country as a population barely managed to survive. If you compare this situation with that at the time of independence, we have made a good progress, but we still have a long way to go. Picture on your screen, there is a most important picture here. Santa Rebellion, fight between the railway engineer and Santa literature from the London News is 1856. There is a most important fight between the railway engineer and Santhal. There is an important picture for you. The next year, impact of the revolt of 1857. There is a most important revolt of 1857 here. There is an impact here. The economical decline of the centuries and artisans were reflected in a 12 major and numerous minor famine from 1770 to be 1857. 57, that is important. The economic decline of peasantry and artisans were reflected in a 12 major and numerous minor famine from 1770 to 1857. All these factors only helped to be spread anti-British feeling with ultimately is culminated into revolt of 1857. The British were not very sensitive to the feeling of the masses, their rootedness. Hence, the reform introduced by them to be put on into be some social custom made the people believe that a government wanted them to be converted to the Christianity. This is the most important point here. Reform induced by them put on into be some social custom made the people believe that a government wanted them to be converted to Christianity. As a result, the English East India Company as a rule in India witnessed a large number of uprising or rebellions. In a later lesson, you will be read about the some important and popular uprising and also analyzes the nature and significance of this uprising here. You will also read about the revolt of 1857, which had a major impact on our national movement. For the first time, it is unfitted and brought together people having different ethics and religious and a class as a background against the British rule. The revolt brought an end of the East India Company as a rule, along with a change in their British policy toward the Indian state. One of the most important outcomes of the revolt was that it give a rise to be nationalism. There is a most important outcome of the revolt that give a rise to be nationalism. Indian people become more aware of their heroes and who sacrificed their life for the country so that other might live in a free Indian in a time to come. The revolt, however, is a secret. There is a relationship between Hindu and Muslims with a divided in the rule policy which was adopted by the British. And they felt that is if they wanted to be a continue their rules in India, it was important to divide it the Hindu and Muslims. The next point here, impact today. Impact today, after reading this lesson, you will become more aware of the British rule affecting every bite of Indian life. The political control also meant a long drawn of interaction between two distinct cultures. Some changes were disparities introduced to be a south and to British political and trading interest. But there were others that occurred as a byproduct of the interaction between the Indian and the Western cultures. A large number of British and Europeans stay in our country during this period, which also is about a cultural transformation. We should be also understand that our present life is shaped to a great extent by our immediate past. In this immediate past, the British control over a large part of the country become an important determining factor. Some of the culture and legal change that took place as a result of British rule continue to affect our life even today. The rails that a club life, the imperial buildings like is a Rashtrapati's Bhavan and the Parliament are reminiscent of British rule in India. Many food items like bread, tea and cake that we are consumed today are the direct result of our interaction with the Europeans during the British rule. If you look around yourself, you will be surprised to know that a large number of the costumes prevalent in the urban India were adopted during the British rule. For example, trouser, coat, and tie. The idea of introducing Indian civil service started during this period. The Indian Army force still retain many aspects of European training and culture. The medium of our instruction and the learning itself is a predominantly English. Predominantly English. The Supreme Court and the High Court pass their judgments in English. And this language itself a legacy of the British rule and continue to be a legal phrases as the Indian king implement in their own